Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action on the final weekend of the regular season in Super League basketball. I don't know about you, Dave, but I approached this weekend with all the diligence of a player whose playoff seeding was secured, knew exactly what they were going to face in the playoffs. And
And I was on the plane home.
I did, were you? I did just enough to keep my season average up.
But just on that, we've got to do a little bit of housekeeping
Mm.
first before we get into stuff. Firstly, um, last week I wrongly traduced a referee, which I shouldn't
Oh,
have done.
right.
Yeah, when I when
Shocking.
I, when I took the mickey out of them, calling them
Yeah,
to
yeah.
show.
Yellow cards and that.
Yeah, twice the same guy, twice for fouls he hadn't committed, and actually mentioned Steve Ferris's name, and it wasn't even Steve Ferris; it was Steve
Oh,
Ferris.
dear.
So, and on top of that. Um, the foul was correctly called because hiding behind Trey Pulliam at the time of the commission of the offence, unseen by me from my vantage point of the
Oh,
front,
no. Dave,
was Deshaun
you've
Arnott.
undermined the whole show now.
Absolutely, Deshaun Arnott reached in and committed the foul. And
Oh,
my
my.
process, I'll be honest, my processes weren't right. My
Uh,
process should have been to go back and check. But the game was against Bristol. If you remember, it was a
yeah,
dire
it
game.
was
It
a
was
40-point
85.
game. Yeah,
There was no, I watch too much to want to go back and check. So
yeah,
instead, I'll just come on here and sound off.
yeah.
I'm wrong. So hands up, mea culpa. Every,
Oh,
well, then,
dear.
but it got better.
Good job there's no controversial calls to talk about this weekend,
Yeah, it
Dave.
is, buddy. So I find actually it's easier to talk about the ones on the TV because I see what everybody else sees.
Yeah, yeah,
When you're in the arena, you only see it from a certain position, and
yeah,
sometimes I don't care enough to go back. But then things got better because Friday night,
yeah. Oh, I did hear you got a chocolate egg,
I
a
got.
chocolate bunny, was it?
I know this is from With Love,
With love,
me,
yes,
all
yeah.
the way from Leicester. The cookies are currently untouched in.
Wait, you got two lots of things.
Oh yeah, don't you? So thank you, Jackie, for all the way from Leicester.
Oh my goodness.
Then a couple of not to be named Eagles fans produced this to me.
Yeah, I
A
saw them
left,
on Sunday and they told me.
a leftover Christmas bunny. Apparently,
They
it's
said it to me it wasn't leftover, it's an Easter bunny, Dave.
Easter
Easter.
bunny, but
Yeah.
but it wasn't. At least it was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah. So they
they've
obviously
gone
had
out
to.
of their way to get you a bunny and you're claiming
Uh,
leftovers.
That's a fair comment. Okay. Well, anyway, like, they did say that they thought you got too much, and then
Mm. Yeah, they said that to me as well.
a person who shall remain unnamed, but is a
Yeah.
regular contributor or at least involved, um, saw this in the garage and thought it would be appropriate to get him a packet of chocolate corn.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there we go.
Nice.
So I'm just overwhelmed with the love.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Well, I feel bad now because I've left my bottle of wine and Ferrero Rocher in in the
Yeah.
other room. I do have my thank you card to hand, which was
Nice.
signed by the Knicks Nation on on the way.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good.
Wonderfully from
Thank
our little
you.
friend Oliver who organised all of that. He's a
To be
good
fair,
lad.
he's a star, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean we're grooming him to be the next Routledge, aren't we?
Well, I think he's got it in him.
Or better than that,
Mm.
which would be in his interests.
Should we talk some basketball?
Yeah, why not? Let's get on.
I think we've watched at least some of these games.
I
Uh,
think
let's start off on Wednesday. London Lions 97, Leicester Riders 80 after the great and dramatic title race of the last month. What a damp squib
yeah,
to end it. London, the champions for the third year in a row, fourth overall, their third outright in that category. They've won 10 trophies in total. Brisker was back as we well, I think it was me actually last week said
found
we
it
don't
on.
know that, Dave.
Yeah,
He was straight into the starters. It was 21-4. Leicester were 2 of 10 after 7 minutes. London was 7 of 10. And to be honest with you, that was about as good as it got.
yeah. I mean, firstly, congratulations to London. I think we probably think of it as more of an achievement than they do, to be
Yes,
honest.
I think we do. Yeah, yeah.
You know, but it is an achievement. They looking back, they effectively punted on the trophy early
Yeah,
season,
yeah.
and they used those games to get themselves right. Obviously, we didn't know there was going to be a club in London until July.
Mm.
They they made some excellent signings. Briscas from Pro A France. Aaron Rai obviously is a high level SLB player. Hadzi Begovic played in the Euro Cup last year. They're getting him back off an injury so they can get him. And then what Bozic has done is he's kind of put some nice pieces around him without
Mm,
having the level of perhaps budget that they've had in previous years, whereby he could just obliterate teams
mm,
with quality. And he's kind of got them playing together. And whilst all the teams have stumbled near the end, they've stumbled slightly less than others.
mm, mm. Again, it goes. I think part of it goes back to the point that you made earlier: is playing all those games early on. When they stumbled, they still had a lead, and that
Well, they
was the
got to the
key.
point whereby they want, if you need to win leagues, you need to have streaks.
Mm,
You need to do what Sheffield did, which is win 8 or 9. And if you can get it to 10 or 12, and if you can have two of those streaks, a 10 to 12 win streak and a 6 or 7 win streak, then you're kind of there because the players get used to the rhythm of winning,
mm,
and it becomes self-perpetuating. And they did that really well in the kind of the mid-season when everybody else was struggling. Now against that, of course, they got, they also got knocked out of the cup by Surrey.
mm,
So they didn't really place. It didn't really seem that they placed an enormous amount of emphasis
mm.
on kind of what we do, which is me and you, which is who's going to win all four?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Three.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
That was always kind of the. It seems that they've been very championship focused the whole
Mm,
season and playoff focused. I mean,
mm,
um, but ultimately, they've had enough depth and enough size.
mm.
And to be fair, some of these guys, I mean, you watched Delaire the first 6 weeks. I didn't think he was going to stay there.
No,
He looked
no,
miserable on court. He looked
yeah,
twisted. He was, everything was shaking their head. He just didn't look that. And for the past 4 months, you couldn't say anything bad about him.
no, no.
He's really he's knuckled down. He's doing what the team wants. You don't see you see kind of a together group there, and obviously they've got they have resources. We know they've got resources, got a lot of assistant coaches, all that stuff. But you still got to win the games.
Yeah.
In this game in particular, little bit I suppose the signs were kind of there with the two close wins Leicester had at the weekend.
Mm,
The weekend before, and on top of that, London were coming off 5 days rest, and Leicester had 3, and London are playing at home. But I thought the biggest thing was that Leicester froze a little bit in the first quarter offensively. Um, the stuff that they were running, which is getting them open shots against Cheshire and
sorry.
sorry, basically run your actions, and eventually someone's going to fall asleep and give you an open shot, or someone's going to give you a step to the rim or something like that, or Thompson's going to get a rebound and throw it out. None of that stuff was working on London.
Mm,
They were really locked into it. So the
yeah.
first possession of the game, I think Leicester threw the ball about 9 passes across back. It ends up with Jackson basically having a one-on-one with 3 seconds to go and dribbling to the middle and turning it over. They just had no advantage at any point. And and the other thing is they were. And I say froze a little bit. The reason I say that is because from about 15 minutes on, they scored the ball at will.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They scored like they scored they were
Well,
posting 95 point game 15 minutes on.
the one thing I noted down was that London were up 30 at the 15-minute mark.
Yeah.
So that means Leicester must have won the remaining game by 13.
Yeah, and well they had 17 points or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
45,
Yeah,
15, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then they ended up scoring 80. So they scored
yeah,
65 in 2.5 quarters.
mm,
So it wasn't that they couldn't make plays, and obviously they didn't make a shot, but London's perimeter defense is, a little bit higher level than some of the other teams in the league. And the only one they made was Abercrombie on kind of a secondary fast break off a dribble.
mm,
They didn't get
yeah,
anything in the half court from the 3 point line. Um, but I just thought the first kind of quarter and a half, I thought they were kind of looking around as to who's going to make the plays, looking
mm,
around for each other. And that's what happens when you have rookies a little bit. I think I was a little bit disappointed with Hunter. I think if he plays in that game next year, I think he will take over a lot quicker. I
mm,
think he will come out and kind of set the tempo because they really needed a little bit more screen and roll game with him and Thompson because on the wings, Johnson and even Jackson to a certain degree, will really struggle to create anything offensively, but with all the wings that London have.
mm.
And by the time, unfortunately for them, for Leicester, that coincided with London making a ton of shots at the other
Yeah,
end.
yeah, yeah.
You
To be
know,
fair, last week you said Holloway had to make some shots, and he did.
and he certainly, he stepped up, and I mean, Every shot he made was a good shot. Every shot he took was a good shot. You know, when you make him or not, but then he knocks him down. So if you have a guy and you're up 18 and then he knocks down another three threes just like
Mm,
that. I mean, that's you're expecting to have your run to come back. That's kind of a solar plexus job, isn't
mm.
it?
Yeah, yeah,
Holloway hits those threes because when you get to 30, you're thinking, Christ, we can play bloody well the rest of the game and we're not going to get close.
yeah, yeah,
That's what happened.
yeah,
Um, there was one call I thought Leicester were a bit unlucky with when I think Rye dived out onto the perimeter to try
yeah,
and
yeah,
put the ball
yeah,
back. He like took one enormous step about 6 feet out of bounds.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
flicked it back in and it wasn't called out of bounds.
yeah,
Um, but apart from that, basically, Leicester need to make threes to win. They couldn't
yeah,
generate any decent
yeah,
open threes, and when they
no,
got them, they weren't quite ready to knock them down.
yeah,
And the other thing I'm going to talk about for people, and we'll talk about a little bit with Manchester later on as well. London and Manchester run their screen and roll defense is different to everybody else in the league. They run their big guy a lot higher. So
mm,
Hadzibegovic, and in Manchester it's even Zahore, but Effigy as well. When someone sets a high screen and roll on a point guard, for instance, Hunter's got the ball. The person who is defending the guy who sets the screen is really important because there's number he governs how you defend in the play. The person who is screened, his job is just to get around it and get there back as fast as he can. But the person who is defending the guy who sets the screen is critical. Now you can have different coverages. You can have him drop under the basket, which kind of allows the attacker to come towards you, or you can have him up at the level of the screen, which is just kind of to delay before getting back. But what London and to Leicester and Manchester do is they run Hadzibegovic way out beyond the line of the screen, almost up to half court, corralling the ball handler. Now that means the guy who sets the screen is open, but what they're gambling is that their guard, Peterson or whoever, and Hadzibegovic are so big and long that you're not going to be able to throw them that pass, and more so that when they throw the ball to the wing instead, that Hadzibegovic is quick enough to get back to disrupt, to do that, which means that suddenly the ball is out of the point guard's hands and into a wing's hands, who's probably less likely to be able to create one-on-one. And they do that really, really well. And it's designed to their personnel. But what it does is it means that the Hunter doesn't get to dictate where he goes. Because every time he's driven the ball off the screen row, he's faced with two guys there. And one of those guys is 6'10" with very long arms.
mm,
So
mm.
that so it really means that it's harder to generate the easy shots that they've been generating. Why doesn't everybody do that? Because not everybody has Begovic
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or someone as quick as an Effigy or whoever who can get up there and get back.
Mm.
And also, you don't necessarily want to result in
The other
uh,
thing in
daft
doing that,
fouls.
yeah,
Daft
I was
fouls when
about to
big
say
guys
the
come
other
out.
thing in
You
doing
don't,
that
you
is
know,
you can easily rack up 5 fouls if you're not nimble enough on the
and that's
tee.
your Effigy thing, And we
Yeah,
say, oh,
yeah.
he picks up too many quick fouls, but his instructions are to kind of get out there.
Mm, mm,
They're trying to make the point guard go out of his way and not let them run stuff, and that's the way they do it. So, as I say, it doesn't work if you're not big enough, long enough, quick enough, or on point because they just throw the ball down the middle for a
yeah,
layup.
and you also need a guard capable
Capable
of
of doing that, and
doing
Hunter's
something.
probably Hunter's probably
Yeah,
6 foot,
yeah.
so he's not that you
Sorry, I
couldn't.
meant London's guard. So
Yeah, who's
because
capable? Yeah,
Hadzibegovic can be as long as he likes, but if it's a lob over the top and
yeah,
the whoever's switching, in that
yeah.
case I think it was probably Peterson, if he can't do at least make it difficult for Thompson, it's going to
Yeah.
be a good night for Thompson, isn't it?
Absolutely, and Leicester kind of struggle with that. It's a
Mm,
different coverage to what I think there's certainly different coverage to what you see from Cheshire or from
mm,
Surrey.
mm,
So they struggled with that, and by the time their guys got into attack mode, the game was done.
mm, mm.
So I just thought it was just a kind of yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with the celebrations. I'll be honest. I mean, there's no better than
Yeah,
winning the league on
yeah,
your own
I was
court.
surprised they didn't hand the trophy out because it was their last
Mm.
home game as well, so why would you not
Yeah,
take
it's
the
just
trophy?
I think they do see it as a regular season. I mean, maybe
Well, I
a
get that,
cultural thing, but
but the punters in the building, if you say we've won the league, will get really excited because
yeah,
the reality is, you and I might think the league is the best test of a team over the course of a season, but there is as many, if not more, people out there who watch basketball who will lean towards the playoffs because of the NBA influence. of all of that. And indeed, most European leagues celebrate the playoffs rather than
Yeah,
the league. But your average British punter who turns up sporadically
yeah.
is conditioned to think that winning the league is worth celebrating at the end and raising a trophy.
Yeah, I mean they did a little bit, but Rye's talking about, in the huddle about, five more games, etc.
Mm,
It's just fine. They're entitled to do whatever they want. It's
mm,
just that, I know the best two nights I ever had,
mm,
with the Eagles were winning the league on our own floor and winning the trophy on our own floor.
mm.
It's fine winning it somewhere else, but you've only
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
small percentage of
yeah,
your
yeah.
fans there, and you want to enjoy it with as many as you can, and it gives you a better kind of publicity in the local press as well.
Mm.
So I thought it was a little bit underwhelming the way that, but I mean, they won the game, so.
Yeah, yeah. They
And
won.
it's
Well,
finished up
yeah.
with your mate's question at the end, was saying, Peter, how important was that win?
Hmm. Mm,
Yeah, kind of important,
mm,
just a trophy.
mm. We touched on Leicester's shooting. 1 for 17 from three, which is the worst 3-point percentage since Caledonia went 0 for 14 in February 2023. It's the worst Leicester have shot in a game since playing Surrey United, which in itself tells you it was a long
Wow.
time ago.
Yeah.
1st of March 2014. Leicester actually won that game because Surrey were 1
I don't
for
remember Surrey
17.
United playing much defense either.
No, no,
I'm
no.
not disappointed that those games weren't being broadcast
Yeah,
live.
yeah.
I remember
Uh,
the Surrey United team that we had to play to win the league on the last day of the season, and we beat them by 50. And I was
yeah.
still nervous in the fourth quarter.
So Surrey were 1 for 17. Leicester were 1 for 22. So that was combined two for 39 in the
Yeah,
game.
that is
That was
outstanding. That would have
breakfast,
been a
wasn't it?
decent. That was a decent Leicester team as well. They had Sullivan and co in that
Yeah,
season,
yeah, 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 yeah,
2014.
yeah.
Rashad Hassan, and I think maybe even Kuznard was back. Maybe not.
No,
No,
was he
Kuznard
not
was
at
back.
Worcester
He was
13
at Worcester that
14?
year.
Yeah, I
But
think so. Can't
they had
remember.
about 4 point guards that year that rather let them down.
Mm.
Anthony Downing and Mike,
Yeah, yeah,
people like that.
yeah.
But still, Collar was playing, so Jesus.
Yeah.
One of 22.
I assume it was at the sports park. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I didn't write that right down. But my assumption is it must have been at the sports park, surely.
Yeah.
So Delaire 23 points and 8 rebounds. Holloway 5 of 9 for three for 22 points. Rye 15 points and 10 rebounds. Abercrombie 19 points. Jackson 15. Shelton 15. So also on the Wednesday night, Manchester basketball 104. Sorry, 89ers 88. I think we've only had 189 all year, and they lost
They're
that
getting
game if I
close,
remember
yeah.
rightly.
They recoil from it, don't they?
Yeah. Gooden had 10 points early on, but nothing much in the first quarter. Surrey had 14 in a row in the second quarter to turn a 7-point deficit into a 33-40 lead.
I thought this game was absolutely breakneck speed.
Mm.
I just don't remember much about it. It just never stopped. And I
Mm.
remember thinking about it as it was going on. I'm thinking that I don't think Surrey can do this for 40 minutes with Manchester. I'm not
Mm.
sure anybody can do it for 40 minutes with Manchester because it's so fast. You're going to have runs, as you say, and they're going to score. But ultimately, Manchester have, even without Kaya, who wasn't playing, Manchester have a little bit more um, kind of scoring from every position, and a little bit more depth. They've got the three centres stuff going on. You got Irvin, who is sneakily being very, very impactful for them,
Mm. Mm.
and and the guards as well. So I remember thinking that this is an old-fashioned BBL scoring race, which is going to
Mm.
favour the home team,
Mm.
and that was kind of the way it went. So if you score 88 on the road, you should have a shot of winning. But I never really. I thought once Manchester got going in the third quarter, you know, you have to find a way of defending those guys because they can put up points in a hurry and they are playing in a hurry.
Yeah. DeBose, Carey, Mitchell threes in that third quarter run you're talking about pushed it out to 65-58. Sorry, had it down to three at the end of the period, but then Cody John with six in a row. Manchester a 9-0 run, 94-80, and that pretty much sealed the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a little bit tough for Surrey because from memory, one of the games they played the starters quite a few minutes. And when they move the ball, they're moving the ball really well. But when they play at that speed, it is tough for those guys. Someone like Cameron Gooden, who doesn't get many easy shots in the game.
Mm.
he makes some unbelievable plays. Jalen Reed could say the same.
Mm.
No, these guys are they're making talented individual players, but they're doing it off a dribble or they're creating off two dribbles, pull up threes, all that type of stuff. It's tough for them to do that 40 minutes a game, and because they don't have the kind of the athleticism, or sorry, the body type to get themselves cheap points.
Mm.
And eventually, the more cheap points you get, the more likely you are to win. So yeah, it was kind of Manchester, and it was Manchester's course correction because they lost two the week before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they were, and Mitchell came out and played really with a ton of energy in this
Mm.
game.
Mm.
He came out like a guy who lost two games in a row. So we'll see whether that continues on. But it wasn't. I don't think an unpredictable score
No,
once you
no, no.
get the speed of the game.
So Irvin, 24 points, 10 of 13 shooting. Mitchell, 18 points. John, 14 points. Ashton Langford had 15 assists.
Hmm.
Gooden, 20. James, 19. Ray, 17. Marcus Delpesh, by the way, 7 of
Yeah,
8 for 14 points and 11 rebounds. The last 8 games he's played, he has a combined index rating of 110. Before that, the previous 22 games he'd played, he had a combined index rating of 110. He's playing really well at the
he's
minute.
been really well, isn't he? I mean, he's he didn't Zahari didn't start on Saturday. I think FJ started instead. Um, but Delpesh just fits the way that Mandalay wants him to play because he's
Mm.
playing with energy. But more importantly, the knock on him last year, he didn't play much at Sheffield last year. But when he did play, didn't really earn any more minutes. I don't know if he was
Mm.
hurt or whatever. Um, but the knock on him was that he didn't finish well around the rim. But at the moment, he's finishing like LeBron around the rim.
Yeah.
He just isn't missing. Left
Mm.
foot, left hand, right hand, push shots, and to the extent whereby he's extending his range out to three, playing with a ton of energy, getting offensive rebounds. Um, Perfect for the system that they're running.
Mm.
Probably not the same level of kind of defensive presence that maybe the other two have, albeit he's certainly not being outplayed down there. But on the glass and on the offensive glass and in relation to his energy, he suits the way they play.
Yeah, yeah,
They clearly enjoy playing with him.
yeah. Let's go to Friday. Newcastle Eagles 91, Leicester Riders 106. No night for Newcastle still. Jackson was out of this game for Leicester. So a third career start for Victor Induku and only Leicester's third different starting five of the season. 5 turnovers in the first quarter. Newcastle had a Coro, Pulliam, Long hitting threes and were 24-12 up after 6 minutes.
Yeah, a bit of a sugar rush for Newcastle. They made a lot of threes,
Mm.
kind of individual threes and kind of in transition before, but they didn't really get the stop set they needed enough to kind of maximize their advantage in the first quarter. And both teams were beginning to score quite comfortably. Um, the Nduku actually quite impressed me during the game.
Mm.
Um, Obviously he's played in NBL one all year, and that gives him,
Team
the
of the year.
team of the year. So that makes he's confident. That means he's confident in relation to just being a role player and making shots. But he didn't look mentally out of place, if I can put it that way. That's the biggest thing for me. It's not whether a guy makes a shot or whether he doesn't. It's whether they have the kind of the vibe that they belong there. They haven't got the
Mm.
target on their back straight away, and they're not being discomforted by it. So he's one to look out for going forward. He's got decent size, probably a little bit short to be the four that his skills set probably is. But in this league, you don't have to be 6'9" to be a four.
Mm.
So I thought that was good, and they started him obviously so they could keep the bench unit of Wright and Shelton together. It's in a way
Mm.
of not moving everybody down one peg and changing everything around. I don't think they were. I think Leicester wanted to finish second, but if they desperately wanted to finish second, I imagine Jackson would have played.
Mm.
But nevertheless, they didn't need Jackson to play because Johnson was really good.
Mm.
And and they got comfortable. I think that's the best way of putting it. Making shots on the perimeter, the level, and they have the one thing Leicester have done this year really well is bounce back from games. They bounced back. They lost the cup semi-final. Sorry, the trophy semi-final. They bounced back. They lost the cup semi-final. They bounced back. They lost to London, and a bit of a beatdown, and they bounced back.
Mm,
That's a skill in itself.
mm.
So because eventually some teams eventually run out of bouncing back. The
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
bounce back ability has its shelf date,
yeah, yeah.
and they've done really well. And they did well in this game doing that. I thought, but I thought
Fi-
their offense, their physicality in their offense was too much for Newcastle.
Five from Johnson and Nduku through saw a three, saw a 10-2 run. Leicester got it to 41-38. Uh, Okoro with his fourth foul 7 minutes ago in the third quarter. Newcastle's offense kind of dried up. Leicester went on a 21-4 run in the third quarter to lead 60-71. 16-2 the run was after he went out of the game.
Yeah, well, that was a massive moment in the game. I'm not sure whether it was a foul on Okoro, whether it was a foul on Long, it was called on Okoro. But Newcastle's offense, without him, they didn't really have a focal point. You didn't really know where they were going. And it was probably those 6 or 7 possessions, when they went very dry and they didn't really get very good shots either, whereby you still see their identity without Okoro is very different to their identity with Okoro, whether Okoro is scoring a ball or not, you know. At this point as well, Defoe was out of the game. He
Mm.
was he was doctored out of it after a kind of a rugby scrum at half time, with a knock to the head. So they didn't have anybody to put in the middle of the court, which meant that Leicester's bigs and Abercrombie and Thompson were considerably bigger than anything Newcastle had. The offensive rebound in Newcastle to death in this game.
Yeah.
You have to remember Newcastle's best rebounder is Seneca Knight.
Mm.
He's seventh in the league in rebounding, and he's not there either.
Mm.
So Leicester's physicality really kind of dominated the game, I thought, after that.
Mm. And it was Abercrombie going for a rebound as well that injured Cole Long. They said on the thing that his tooth had fallen out. I've been led to believe his tooth didn't fall out, but he had stitches in a cut,
It
did
was
he,
in
or
his
something?
cut to his lip.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and he basically walked straight off the court with his mouth on there, and there was an announcement a couple of minutes later saying he was going to hospital. The game was played on kind of on the borderline of physicality the whole game, to
mm,
be honest. Inside, not on the perimeter, there wasn't much perimeter defense actually,
mm,
but and when there was, the rest were quite happy to call it, touch foul here and there,
mm, mm,
but they didn't do, I think, a great job of refereeing the physicality inside. Um, Certainly, I mean, it's a tough one because when I say physicality inside, it's basically Thompson. And Thompson is, I think you told me, he's the best plus minus guy in the league this year.
he is, yeah, 350.
Defensively, in the first half, Thompson made a couple right in front of me. He
Mm,
made one play whereby he blocked it, the full 15-footer from nowhere.
mm,
And he didn't block it out of his hand. He blocked it, 6 feet away from him. So it's at its
mm,
apex, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
When Darius has reached a 6 foot, which is something I don't think I've seen anybody make a play like that in 15 years,
Mm,
right? His defensive kind of presence and ability to challenge shots and all that type of stuff is really, really, it's a bit of a thing to see. Against that, offensively, when he's rebounding, he's a little bit like an untethered colt.
mhm.
He's got long arms
Yeah,
and long legs, an absolute abundance of energy,
yeah,
an
yeah.
enormous kind of bounceability, if I can put it that way.
Mm,
And he goes after everything. And I think at times, I think in this game, probably at times, certainly when he came back in the second quarter, I think the refs probably gave him some allowances for that. And I think they could have cleaned that up. I had 3 people at halftime come who I know separately, coming up to me and saying, "This is a bit of a rugby match, isn't it?" Just saying that. So I don't think they did a great job of cleaning that up. And obviously, what then happens is Defoe goes down at half time. So then he's in the locker room. And the guys, no doubt the guys will be asking him, why are you not playing? Oh, I got hit in the head by Thompson, whatever. And then, so that means, and then the guys are thinking, well, the Newcastle guys think, well, no one's protecting him. Therefore, that's when players stop protecting themselves. And I
mm,
thought what happened in this game was that kind of took over a little bit because James got fouled by Abercrombie on the rebound and he elbowed him. He reached out and hit him with an elbow,
mm,
Christian James. And then, then 2 minutes later, Abercrombie's flying for a rebound and his elbow ends on Long's chin, and then I just think that, and the body's flying around all over the place. And I think there was an element of that There was just an element of players kind of saying, okay, well, if you're going to let us be physical, we're going to be physical.
It's
And
interesting because I'm obviously sat in my kitchen on my sofa
yeah,
watching this game, and I I I had my laptop. I had that on the telly, and I had the other two games on my laptop. So I sort of a little eye on to, and the bit we're going to get to in a minute was right around the point that the Sheffield and Caledonia game was coming to an
getting
end because
close, yeah.
obviously there was a delay to the start of this game, so it was sort of 10 minutes behind the other two. And I couldn't work out where all the tetchiness was coming from. I was watching, I was thinking, why is it felt like it had a level of tetchiness that
Yeah, it
I
did.
didn't feel through the TV.
And I was watching up the top. I was watching on the
Mm.
gantry.
We
On
saw you,
the,
Dave. You were all over the telly, mate. We
yeah, well,
know you hang out with the right people and you
the
get on
right people.
telly.
First off, we watched close. First off, we sat down next to the court.
We saw where you were sat there as well. You were up multiple times on the
Yeah,
telly, Dave.
yeah, well, whatever. And then but second half, I came up to the top and
Mm,
watched it from a distance, and you get a bit
mm,
more perspective from there,
mm,
you
mm,
know, and you get to see kind of the stuff that is going on. And yeah, I mean, obviously, there's still a little kind of residue from
mm,
back in November and December when they played each other like three times in 2 weeks, I think. And Leicester coming off a win or coming off a big loss.
mm,
And, Leicester got a ton of energy. And as I say,
mm,
Thompson's an absolute physical specimen. And it just got, as you say, it got touching. And don't, I mean, neither team has what you'd call antagonists.
no. Mm.
Hunter and Pulliam are a bit similar. They're a bit
We haven't got Green
Taj
and
Green and Thomas or whoever it was last year. And
it wasn't Thomas, was it? It
it
was the
was
other fella, the guard whose name's gone out
Asbury.
of my head now. Yeah,
Asbury.
Asby. Yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah,
haven't got those guys. So there's no real antagonists. We know that, Hunter and even and Pulliam now is showing signs of it as well. Are pretty, they'll stick up for their own corner. Remember
mm,
Hunter dropping the shoulder into Stuckman, that type of London.
mm,
And we know, so there's going to be a bit there, but nothing to the degree whereby it got a bit out of hand. But what happened was also Newcastle lost their discipline,
mm,
you know. And the reason that they kind of lost the discipline was because they couldn't get a rebound.
mm,
And they couldn't get a rebound because with Long gone, with Defoe gone, with Delpesh gone, with Nate not there, it's basically a bunch of 6'5" guys.
mm,
And that meant that, it becomes difficult. And I thought the game was over at the end of the third quarter. I thought the game was over at the end of the third quarter. Now Newcastle made a little bit of a run when actually after Ward Hibbert got hurt. They got a couple of steals, but that was kind of a sugar rushy thing.
mm,
A bit of energy because another guy's on the bench. So at that point, there were four guys down effectively. Um, but overall, I thought, Leicester just got better shots. They were a more rounded basketball team, and they had effectively, other than Zach Jackson, a full roster, and Newcastle didn't.
mm.
So they weren't competing, kind of matching matchup.
And
Um,
then the bit with was about 4.5 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. I did Candy get called for a foul? Did he lose the ball out of bounds? I can't remember,
but he lost
but
out of bounds. He knocked the ball out of somebody's hands, didn't he?
yeah, and he had the ball in his hands, and Hunter went to try and get it off him, and he kept it away from him. And then he threw it at him right
Yeah.
in front of the referee, so that's a technical foul.
Yeah.
And then you might have a better insight to it than I, but my pickup from that was then Mark basically went, "Wait, you're going to get a technical for that, but I've lost this guy, that guy, and that guy to
I
contact,"
think,
and
yeah,
then
I think that's kind of right. I think his frustration built, I think, on the Ward Hibbert one because he's looking at Paul Unsworth on the sideline saying, "What? He fell over on his own? He fell over on his own?" And just for that, Thompson sets a screen, which is probably an illegal screen. It's knee on knee contact. There's no intent, but it's kind of that cultish behaviour. I was saying again, he's making himself as wide as he can. Ward Hibbert goes through it, bangs his knee, so he's gone. So at that point, you've got Stuart looking like, well, hang on a minute, a car has been refed out of this. I've got Long in hospital. I can't play Defoe because the doctor doesn't says I can't, and and now Ward Hibbert's gone, and we got the playoffs next week.
mm,
And so at that point he's ticking to the point whereby there may have been the Candy thing that tipped him over, but I actually think it was the Ward Hibbert thing. I think it was him basically just saying because he got his technical and his disqualification very quickly. They came very quickly after each other.
Mm.
So the second comment must have been just absolutely well beyond whatever
Yeah,
pale.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And my impression of that was him basically sticking up for his. I
Mm.
did it. The only time I've ever been thrown out of a game was at Worcester, and that was when Fletcher was in hospital because
Mm.
Jamal Williams put him there.
Mm.
Subsequently became teammates, would you believe? But there you go.
Mm.
And we lost the game, and it was only 3 seconds to go. But I did it because we had to play Plymouth the next day, and half my team was injured,
Mm.
and they needed to know that I was sticking up for them
Yeah, yeah.
to keep their it's base psychology. It's very basic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying there's no
Every coach in the
science to it.
world's done it at some point.
You have to keep the unit of the group. And the minute that your team doesn't, if you think your team's getting the rough end, particularly physically, and you don't stick up for them with the refs, and you don't show that you're on their side, then they ain't going to play for you. These guys are
Mm.
these guys are finished in 3 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got a contract for 3 more weeks,
Mm.
2 more weeks maybe. You want them to keep playing hard for you? You better be on their side.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what he did. Now I think it was definitely one. I think he was trying. He was quite content to get thrown out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was almost planned. But at that point, obviously the crowd becomes absolutely kind of
Yeah, yeah.
it becomes
Steamroll.
pantomime again,
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Which is always good
The
fun, I
the
think.
in all the fun and games, Dave. I don't know. Being a stickler for mechanics, I don't know if you noticed, but whilst after the first technical on Candy was called, Josh Ward Hibbert was subbed into the game
Right,
for Candy. And
right,
then obviously Hunter's walking to the free throw line, and then there's two technicals on
yeah,
Mark. There's
yeah.
then a timeout, and out of the timeout, Candy has returned to the game, and Josh Ward-Hibbert has come
That
out of
again.
the game, and the
That
clock
can't happen.
didn't tick.
I didn't notice it. There were perhaps other things that were taking one's attention at that
I
time.
mean, there was about 5 minutes. I don't
Yeah,
blame anybody. I think it's table officials are supposed to notice that rather than well,
well,
referees as well, but table officials. There was
yeah.
about 5 minutes between those two incidents, but it
But
actually,
maybe
because actually, if you look on the stats, people really should have picked it up because if you look on the stats, there is a sub in, a timeout, and a sub out, and
right.
it's like you can't do that without the clock ticking.
Yeah, well, it was pretty febrile in there at that
Mm,
point. I mean,
mm.
the problem is that uh,
Mechanics, Dave.
mechanic. I agree with
Mechanics.
you. I agree with you. Yeah, yeah, get it right. But I'd say there was enough going on there whereby and the game was done.
Mm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll kind of throw them a bone on that one a little
Yeah.
bit. I do
Uh,
think overall they didn't do a great job in that game, not necessarily of individual calls, but of setting the right tone on the interior in relation to contact. I think the part of the problem may be, it's a pretty much if you come to that game, you think maybe it's a dead game,
mm,
and maybe you don't think there's going to be that much kind of in it, and
mm,
then when it kind of kicks off, it only takes one or two things,
mm,
and then it kind of starts, and you're constantly chasing it if you're a ref. But no, I don't think it's ever good when you've got three guys who are effectively invalided out of a game and
mm,
not one of them as a result of a foul.
mm,
That would set me off as a coach as well,
mm,
whether I was right or wrong.
mm.
That would set me off. Now then we had the pantomime stuff of Gandhi grabbing whoever it was behind the neck to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
thrown out.
yeah, yeah. He got an
Um,
unsportsmanlike foul, which obviously to go with his technical is a disqualifying foul.
I'm
And
telling you,
then,
I'm telling you, about 2,500 people in that arena. About 200 people knew that rule, and about the
yeah,
other
yeah,
2,500, the other 2,000 didn't. So they're
yeah,
all
yeah.
the
They're
hell out
all
of it
going
as
mad for
well.
what was a blatant
Oh
unsportsmanlike
yeah, for
foul.
what was a disqualification by rule,
Yeah,
and so that adds to it as well.
yeah, yeah.
And so
And and
to a
then
certain
Newcastle obviously finished the game with four players because Ward Hibbert didn't come back in, even
well,
though
Ward Hibbert was iced up
yeah,
had his knee iced. So
yeah,
when Darius did get up,
yeah,
he was told to sit down.
yeah, yeah,
Um, if I was Darius, I think I'd have told him to go and stood on the side of the court and done nothing. I don't want to
yeah,
get,
yeah,
but I mean, he's got to do what the doctor tells him, I suppose.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so at that point they're down because the Cora's already fouled out by then, I think.
Yeah,
maybe.
somebody, Candy had been disqualified, and obviously Cora had already fouled out at that point, and then somebody else fouled out at that point, I think,
I
with a
know they
minute
need.
to
No, they
go.
didn't need to. I think because they're missing three more, and they're missing late as well, and they've only got a squad of 11. So by that point, there's about seven. Anyway, so they played 50 seconds with four players, and it was
Mm,
all a bit comedic, to be
mm,
honest. At that
mm,
point. Um, yeah, but I mean, Leicester really were really good. And I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed, that's a great sport.
mm,
At the end of the day, sometimes there's a TV show on BBC iPlayer called Blue Lights. It's a
mm,
nice, it's a very well written kind of look into a police station, a police procedural in Northern Ireland. There's two
mm.
series of it. It's really good. And normally, I think all the kind of the police and law TV is rubbish because
Yeah,
it's got no idea what solicitors do, etc. Blah blah.
yeah.
And there's a copper in that, and
You
I
just
old
wear
Irish.
wigs and bang gavels, don't you?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. There's no gavels in court. I used to follow a Twitter account called Inappropriate Gavels. There is, if you Google, you go on Twitter, if you anymore, anybody who's still on it
yeah,
madly, there's an account called Inappropriate Gavels that I
yeah,
used to
yeah.
follow. We do not have gavels. Gavels do not exist,
If
right?
you ever see Dave, just say gavels to him because it's always a
Yeah,
button you can press. It's
yeah,
bring up a
absolutely.
gavel.
And similarly, you don't get a trial in Coronation Street for murder in a week and a half, in a magistrate's court. It's not gonna happen. And anyway, but there's an old Irish cop in the first episode. It was kind of a mentor, first series. It's kind of a mentor figure, and his phrase is, "Just take a beat." Well, he said, "Take a beat.
Mm,
Just wait. Just see. Before you just start flying around and flying into stuff,
mm,
take a beat." And I know it's been a bit kind of fiery and volatile on social media, and I know it's not good when you've got 2,500 people in there, and you've been in there. It's a loud
mm,
arena
mm.
when there's a bit because it's
Sort of
everybody's
on
got a
top,
decent seat.
isn't it?
You're
Yeah.
on top. Everybody's got a decent seat. They're all very
Mm,
close to the court. But we just need to take a beat and
mm.
just look back. Ultimately, this is a sport whereby we've been through the ringer the past 9 months,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely through the ringer. And it's probably a comment I'm going to make about the Cheshire Newcastle game on Sunday as well.
Mm,
Um, you know, if we want this sport to continue, there is going to have to continue and get to where we want to. There is going to have to be an acknowledgement of everybody's significance in it,
mm, mm,
and there are going to have to be substantially substantial and significant improvements made across the board. Now,
mm,
Mark Struttle did an interview for the Eagles afterwards, whereby he was still ticking and he was talking about holistically we need to improve, and he's basically calling out the refs without calling out the refs.
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, not great, but not absolutely. But the sentiment in relation to what he was saying, I think, was fine. I think the manner he said it was aimed at sending a message and
Mm,
whatever. Um, but the sentiment is, we need to improve holistically. Yeah, we do. We need improvement, but not just in the ways that he's talking about. We need to improve in a ton of ways,
mm,
right? We need to have um, better media managers for
mm,
teams, so we don't have. Um, we need to have better disciplinary procedures. I've banged on about this forever.
mm,
Whereby there are real consequences to saying things that you
mm.
shouldn't say, and there is a standard of respect across all parties
Yeah.
that needs to be enforced, and to be enforced, it has to be punitive. There have to be sanctions because otherwise, you know as well as I do, it won't enforce. And this is kind of like the Trumpification. As soon as the league chairman gets to say something like he said, then basically it's like night follows day. It's going to follow. There are going to be grievances
Mm,
that are going to come out. We've had Lloyd being upset. We've now had Mark being upset. We had Ben being upset this week. It'll be somebody else's turn next week.
mm,
It was a team before that. It's always going to be somebody else's turn. And the way that's dealt with isn't in the kind of the aftermath of an emotional game with players getting injured and someone getting the stitches in their mouth or anything like that. The way that's dealt with is by proper dialogue, pre-season and in the summer,
mm,
where for whatever Millett said in the summer, you do have time to sort stuff out.
mm.
You do have you need to look past the business side of it to a certain degree, and you need to actually have some um, time and effort spent on getting all the parties together and not just your kind of your one meeting with the ref pre-season. Come down, used to be come
Yeah,
down to
yeah,
Leicester in September and we
yeah,
have a meeting
yeah,
with the
yeah,
refs and they'll
yeah,
tell you what the rules are going to be.
yeah, yeah,
No, I mean, Fab just said, what's the point? Fab never used to go. I'm not driving. He said, I'm not driving 500 miles there and back just to
mm,
be told I'll speak to the rest of the game. It
yeah,
wasn't, it wasn't there, right? That means you need to have you need to have specific, everything firstly needs to be transparent, needs to be on websites. So on the website, so you know what people know what the rules are.
mm,
Discipline needs to be transparent. When will a discipline case be heard?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Um,
And it needs to be prompt as well because we've got the issue of Ali Hodgic was
yeah, still playing.
disqualified from a game last week, and
Played four
what is he
games.
going to ban? If his action warrants a ban,
Yeah,
uh, is he going to be banned the first game of next season?
yeah. But then there has to be there has to be a real talk about what we expect of officials, both table officials and referees, in
Because,
relation.
by the way, just to throw
Yeah,
this out, I recall it was at the NEC, so it was a long time ago, a Final Four weekend where somebody got disqualified on Saturday night and didn't play on Sunday.
Sunday. Yeah, absolutely. And
And obviously, that would have been written down in the rules.
yeah, be written down the rules, and everybody knows what the results are. But beyond that, it needs clarity in relation to, what we expecting officials to drive 3 or 4 hours to a game, get a bottle of water, referee a game, and drive 3 or 4 hours back.
Mm,
Right?
mm,
Are we expecting the refs to hang around after the game and shake people's hands? My view is kind of no. It's just walk off
yeah, yeah,
on that
yeah,
side of it. But why create a flashpoint? And if you want
yeah,
to shake hands with the players, do it out of the public. Whatever. The
yeah.
coaches might want to speak to you, they might not. Are we going to have? We've talked about security, and are we going to have proper levels um of security? If you want to be at the top end of professional sport, it costs money. You have to do this stuff.
Mm,
Are we going to have, if you choose a phrase, less referees to ref more games?
mm,
Who are paid more to ref more games? Is there going to be a link in relation to that? And ultimately, is there going to be a code of conduct
yeah,
which basically puts everything in practice as to what the expectations are for the
yeah,
betterment, not of one team, not of one player, not of one frustration, but for the betterment of the sport as a
mm,
whole. And coaches are going to screw up, and refs are going to screw up. And occasionally it's going to happen in those situations whereby, yeah, one team gets the rough end, or one team has players injured, or one team gets a call which they don't like, or two calls which they don't like. And it might well be that the clips demonstrate that they're wrong. But we are doing things on a seat of our pants at the minute. Everything is a seat of the pants.
mm,
There is nothing behind anything. Everyone's got a vested interest. You got refs groups, you got players groups, you got coaches groups. I'm sure the table officials have got a WhatsApp group. Everybody, and unless people start appreciating the importance of each other,
mm, yeah,
that's not going to happen.
yeah,
Now that works both ways. That's not a knock at the coaches. That works both ways. The refs have to appreciate the importance of being absolutely on it in relation to every game, not just the ones that they think they're going to be on.
mm,
Not
mm,
the thing that I think I'm going to be on. You can't miss somebody being knocked to the floor and being held out for a concussion. You have to see something.
mm,
I don't mind if you see it and you don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's fine. But the impression on Friday night was that they missed a hell of a lot
mm,
of physicality, in that it was like whatever, and that's not great. So yeah, so they have to be better at that. But everybody else has to have an understanding that for the sport to flourish, and it's easy for me to do because I'm not in the heat of the battle anymore.
mm.
But for the sport to flourish, there has to be an appreciation of everybody,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
in everybody's role. And at the moment, we're a bit bush league.
Mm,
It's partly by the fact that all these games are on the telly and everybody's getting interviewed. The coaches are being interviewed twice a night. Both coaches are being interviewed at the beginning, the coach is being interviewed at the end. Then the team's social media doing
yeah,
interviews and all
yeah,
this type of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And all, and I'll tell you now, if that's the Premier League, their media people are not letting the coaches go anywhere near a microphone until they are absolutely sure what they're going to say, and
yeah,
they are saying it with clarity. It's the one thing that
yeah,
Rob is really good at. Rob can be mad as hell during the game, but he
mm,
doesn't go and do an interview until 20 minutes later.
mm,
And that's smart because ultimately, you can say a lot of things in anger and you can repent them at leisure.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so that's my kind of kumbaya stuff.
yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate professional sport, and it's probably unrealistic. And ultimately, I appreciate
I-
everything.
In some ways, I don't have a problem with a coach venting off at a call that he thinks is bad. But as you say, there must be consequence to it.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, everybody does it and it spirals down. And by the way, there'll be some times where the coach is wrong and the
yeah,
call wasn't bad, and then it'll all spiral down, and then Facebook army will come on and go, "Oh, these referees are all terrible," and blah blah blah,
yeah.
on the basis of a call that was right, but the coach has feel aggrieved and he's
Yeah,
got
because the
no
reality of this is, Dan, and
kickback
you
to
know
him.
me, I'm a great believer that we're all cheering for laundry, right?
Mm.
Ultimately, just because a guy is nice to you as
Yeah,
a fan
yeah, yeah,
after the
yeah,
game and shakes your
yeah,
hand,
yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah,
doesn't mean that he wouldn't be playing for another
yeah,
team if he
yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
make a bit, if
yeah.
he could make a bit more
Well,
money, or if
it's
there'd been a space at the wrong time. Okay,
yeah,
it doesn't mean anything.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, but obviously what fans will see is, he's their favorite player, he's a nice guy. So
yeah, yeah,
they'll
yeah,
see their coach going off with the ref and they'll immediately,
yeah,
take that line. That's the way it is.
yeah,
That's why
yeah,
being a ref is an impossible, well, not an impossible job, but a very difficult job. You have to have a very
yeah,
specific skill, but you also have to be properly prepared for what you're doing. And the
yeah,
league
yeah,
have a
yeah.
discussion as to whether or not it's appropriate to have people driving 3 or 4 hours before a game,
Mm,
3 or 4 hours back and getting a bottle of water when they get there,
mm,
you know,
yeah,
and getting there an hour before the game. Ultimately, and that comes down to finance.
yeah, yeah. Does yeah.
So if you've got all these millions or whatever and you want to spend them, then you have to put resources into everything. And
Yeah.
that means back office, that means media strategy, that means discipline, that means basically running something like it. You're not running it on a shoestring.
Mm,
And that's tough because it is, as you know, there's a bit of shoestringy stuff going on.
mm,
And but the word that Stu will use, which is a really good word, was holistically.
mm,
That's a really good word, and that is right. There needs to be a meeting of minds, but the problem is that we're not being led by
mm.
people who are overly holistic at the moment.
And the
Talking
other
about
thing
doing what they're
was
doing.
the tone at which it was said was not
That's because it was
holistic.
5 minutes after the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, it was 5 minutes after the game. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
he's still
yeah,
ticking,
yeah,
and
yeah. Get
that
it.
was Ben Thomas on Sunday as well.
Yeah,
So that's still
yeah,
ticking. So it's, and as I say, I know because my wife was a media manager for Sunderland Football Club and for the press officer for Sunderland Football Club, Middlesbrough Football Club, and in Europe.
mm,
I know that she would not let anybody anywhere near a microphone
mm,
without giving them a briefing first.
mm,
And we that it's just difficult. It is just difficult. I have I have a sympathy for all sides.
yeah, yeah,
I in all of this, I really do. Um, and as I say, I would have behaved exactly as Mark did with three of my guys sitting there
mm,
and not me, my team not getting a rebound and whatever. And then, as I've said the same thing. I've got myself thrown out.
mm,
But we have to clean up the stuff around the edges.
yeah, yeah.
We really do.
So,
Get me commissioner, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'll do it. No shit, then, dear me.
He'll have a gavel.
A gavel,
The commissioner's gavel. All
yeah,
decisions will be
absolutely.
decreed by
Yeah,
gavel.
I'm not giving it to Charles Thompson. He might hit him on the head with it.
So Pulliam 21 points, James 16, Okoro 13 points and 5 assists. In case you forgot there was a game going on, Hunter 23 points and 8 assists. Johnson 9 of 12 for 23 points and 8 rebounds. Abercrombie 18 points, 14 of 27 from 3-point range. Leicester could have used some of those on Wednesday.
Yeah, the bounce back, wasn't it? That's definitely
Yeah,
a back. That was
yeah.
always going to come. I think Johnson played better knowing he's going to play a bit more with Jackson. He gets more touches.
Mm,
Jackson's not there. Johnson's going to feature. Sometimes, you take somebody out of the bucket and the water fills back up again.
mm,
Take
mm.
someone's foot out of the bucket.
So that win for Leicester guaranteed Manchester fourth place because Newcastle couldn't catch them anymore. So let's go to Bristol. Bristol 81, Cheshire Phoenix 93. Smith and Robinson were back. Idle Rock was back for Cheshire as well. Flyers with the first 7 points of the game, but it was Knicks who led by one at the end of the first quarter, and second quarter they forced some turnovers, pushed the gap out to 8, but it was still only 3 at half time.
Yeah, but Bristol play a lot of games. Now they
Mm,
really have played a lot of games. Um, whereas Cheshire have been, they've had something of a light schedule on the way in compared to everybody else. Obviously, Idle Rock back as well gave them another body, and I thought they were able to play at a different speed to Bristol in this game. Bristol's just again, Robinson was back for this game.
yeah, he was. Yeah, yeah,
He was
yeah.
back for this game. Um, but Andreas is playing a lot of guys to manage the minutes over the summer. So he's playing Samuels. In the first quarter. He's playing Landolfi more. You know, there's a lot of combinations going on. They're just trying to get through to the end of the year. I
Mm,
thought Cheshire were pretty good in this game. Again, if I mean Cheshire's X factor is Timberlake. Let's be
mm,
honest. Timberlake can drop 20 a game, 25 a game whenever it appears like whenever he wants.
mm.
But he's so easily sidetracked. Um, and everybody else at Cheshire is kind of going to do what they're going to do. I don't remember. I did watch this game back. I don't remember that much more about it, other than the fact that Cheshire kind of pulled it out in the third quarter.
Yeah, so 5 from Timberlake, 4 for Holden, a 9-0 run in the third quarter took it out to 46-53, and it was never in single figures after that.
Yeah, it's just Bristol have droughts as well. They don't have that many great shot generators. If I put it that way, I've said that before.
Mm,
Lewis can finish. Robinson's a good finisher around the rim and on the 3-point line. Um, but Louis kind of a point guard who kind of dribbles the ball and likes to attack the rim. He isn't a kind of a guy who's just going to come off a screen and fling it to somebody for an open shot. And then they run some nice stuff, and they've got guys who can get going, but they also are very susceptible to droughts. We've said it all year,
mm.
and you can't get into a drought against Cheshire because they're going to score eventually.
Johnson, 23 points, 11 of 12 from free throw line. Robinson, 12 points and 8 rebounds. Lewis, 12 points and 12 rebounds. Timberlake, 25 points. Austin, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Grayson, 15 points and 11 rebounds. Cheshire had 21 second chance points and 25 points off turnovers. That's only the second time this season a team has gone 20 plus in both, and both of them were Cheshire.
Yeah, well, that's Cheshire's MO, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, so there you go. In the half court, they're okay, Cheshire. They're okay in the half court. But they're devastating in transition,
Mm,
and Cameron Holden on the offensive glass in particular.
and Austin.
And Austin,
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
yeah.
The other,
That's
the other,
easy ones because the guards get the rebounds, so you
yeah,
don't think of them as an offensive rebounding team
yeah.
because it's the guards getting them. But that's because they're inverted because they've got a Skylar standing out on the 3-point line,
Mm,
which means that they're creating the advantage with the opposition's smaller players under the rim, and they've got two of the best offensive rebounders.
mm. The other differential in the stats was the 3-point shooting, 5 of 19 versus 13 of 35.
Very cool.
Caledonia Gladiators 83, Sheffield Sharks 87. Nixon was back for the Sharks in this one. Sharks with 2 Glasgow threes in East Kilbride to go 8-0 up, but only had 9 points in the next 7 minutes. So Ramsey, Barnes, Malcolm put Caledonia 27-17 ahead.
Yeah, Ramsey was having a kind of I used to play for you game, wasn't
Mm,
he?
yeah, yeah.
And making some of those remarkable shots that he makes where he kind of spins and chucks it up off the ceiling and it just goes in. And Caledonia played with a kind of ton of energy early. Um, Sheffield mixing and matching the lineups, obviously playing the two little guards, Glasgow and McGill. And Rod can shoot, so you
Mm,
got to be aware of that. And there's actually less there's less competition with McGill and Glasgow than there is with McGill and Nixon. I say competition between them. I mean, in relation to whose ball is it this time? Who's going to have the ball this time? Um, so it kind of the team runs slightly differently. But I think Sheffield were just basic. I think look at the minutes spread in this game, and there wasn't many. I think maybe one guy over 25 minutes for Sheffield was clear. Everybody else was having their own kind of go. getting the minutes. And Caledonia are playing for, you can't say they're playing for pride, but um, they're a competent basketball team, but it's too late. And B, they haven't won enough to develop any form of
Mm.
winning kind of culture when in the clutch when it matters.
What they did have was 31 points in the first quarter, which was their first 30-point first quarter of the season.
Mm.
Sheffield chipped it down 3 times. Caledonia pushed it back to 10 3 times. But a 10-0 run with 7 to go. For I say 7 of them for Glasgow. Let's try that again. It's this Glasgow
Yeah.
thing is throwing me off against
Well,
Caledonia. A 10-0 run with 7 for Glasgow around the final break made it 64-66, which was Sheffield's first lead since those early shots in the game. And then it comes down to the end. So I've gone down play by play for the end. 147 to go. Ventura wedgies a 3, which I think is the first one I've seen this season from 3, a wedgie from 3,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Then he airballs a 3 for
Yeah.
132 to go
Yeah.
on the shot clock buzzer. 77-79 was the score at that point. Clay to the rim, 119 to go, 77-81. Barnes with an offensive rebound and putback made it a 2-point game. Nixon then misses, but Anderson, with a little help from Clay, gets the offensive rebound. He's fouled. 79-83 makes both free throws. 46.8 to go. Ramsey with a nice little scoop down the middle
Yeah. I
of the
thought that might have
floor.
been a foul, but I couldn't quite, he was very quick, so maybe it wasn't. Yeah.
Makes it 81-83. 20 seconds to go. McGill drives high off the glass. 81-85.
Yeah,
Timeout.
frustrated. Caledonia's defense frustrated me at
Yeah.
that point. I thought that's Ricky's shot. You know, he got to
Mm,
his spot. He shoots that little 10-footer off the glass. He was in rhythm. You've got to be at the point that, well, I was talking about London before. When London are out there, they're pressurizing the ball.
mm,
With Caledonia, they were in drop coverage, but the big wasn't there. Whoever, I think it was Cravon Bonds, wasn't very happy with himself because he missed it. He was guarding Clay and he was stood next to Clay. He has to be there. He has to be high. He can't let McGill beat you with that shot.
mm. No advance of the ball after the timeout, down 4 with 20 seconds to go. Ramsey, though, at full speed, driving through, gets fouled. 13.5 seconds to go, makes both free throws
That's
83
probably
85.
why.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
how they pick up speed.
Mm. Timeout, advance the ball, and Nixon is fouled. He makes both free throws 83 87, and then Ramsey almost lost the ball and ended up heaving up an off balance 3 with a couple of seconds left, and that was the game.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, just a team that's kind of used to winning against a team that isn't. It's interesting. Nixon didn't play much, but he played at the end.
Mm.
So there's going to be a lot on him in the playoffs. I think he had obviously he had a wrist
Yeah, he had
bandage
that
on.
on before. I remember he had it on in the Leicester game when he was
Mm,
playing that. I think that was the last game he played before he went out, and even then he didn't play as many minutes as you would expect.
yeah,
So I
and
think
the other
it
guy
must
is
have been bothering him for a
the other guy is
while.
Groves. Groves is the guy you forget about, but he's very very efficient offensively.
Yeah. And in probably not the first example, but definitely not the last example of me mailing it in on the last weekend of the season, I've not written down the scorers from this game. So
Fair play.
let's move on to Saturday. Surrey 89 is 93, Manchester Basketball 87. There was actually nothing riding on this game. It wasn't going
No.
to impact on either team in terms of where they finished. Surrey led by 6 early. Manchester were 7 ahead early in the second quarter. Scores were tied at half time. Surrey started a fourth quarter with a 10-0 run to lead 78-65. That was
Yeah,
basically the
well,
game.
obviously there's nothing on the game. That generally favours the home team. They've got the
Mm,
crowd to please.
yeah.
Mandalay played Weaver quite a lot. Hasn't really played any meaningful minutes this year. Maybe a couple, but he let him play through mistakes in this game. He couldn't knock down a shot, but he let him play. John didn't play, um, and I don't put much store in the game, to be honest. I
Mm,
think Surrey did what they did. It was kind of the home team coming back off a loss is going to play aggressively, and they were able to score the ball sufficiently. Jalen Ray is shooting the lights out.
mm,
So his degree of difficulty of shot. He is a man who makes difficult shots look remarkably easy because of
mm.
his form. It's just a flick of the wrist and it's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
He's probably 6 foot. He shoots the ball basically from in front of his face. Yeah, it's unblockable and it's arrow-like accurate.
Mm,
Um, and particularly at home, he's a bucket at the moment.
mm.
And yeah, I just thought Manchester were using it to play some of the guys and Surrey as well. To be fair, but as you say, there's nothing on the game. I did actually watch the game. I didn't realise when I was watching it there was nothing on it.
Mm.
Um, but I didn't see much in it, which I paid much attention to be honest. I watched.
Ray, 25.6 rebounds, 5 assists. James, 17 points and 8 rebounds. Adelican, 8 of 11 for 17 points and 10 rebounds. Ashton Langford, 20.7 rebounds, 8 assists. Mitchell, 19 points, 5 of 15 for 3.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
probably indicative as well. He wasn't being
yeah,
shy in that
yeah,
game,
yeah,
did you,
yeah.
Mitchell, was he?
You missed you missed not being on Twitter. You missed the Saturday night stat fest
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
delighted.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a life.
The 61 times that somebody shot 15 threes in a game, and
Really, I missed that. Yeah,
yeah,
well,
you
there you
missed
go. If you're
all
going to
of it.
exclude me by way of some form of social media discrimination, then continue.
Irvin and Delpesh with 12 points apiece. They were 9 of 46, 46 threes, Manchester, in a 40-minute game. That is the second equal most in
All
the
right.
live stats era and ergo ever, because nobody before 2008 was
Got
shooting
46 days, yeah.
46 threes in a season, never mind a
Yeah,
game. London had 48 in April 21 to hold the
April
record.
21.
I think it was against
Probably,
Caledonia.
probably Cugini and Reese, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it could have
Colin
been.
Robinson.
I remember doing a London game up in Caledonia where they made a load of threes. Whether that was it or not, I don't remember. Let's come to Sunday, where we were forced to watch some of this in the end. Sunday, Bristol Flyers 87, Surrey 89 is 86. I think they've been 3 points either side in every game, have they, or 4 points?
Yeah, I watched the last 5 minutes of regular time, regular season, regular time, and then the two overtime periods in this game. So
So
anything
it's
beforehand of interest, I've got no clue about.
so I will talk you through the bit of interest because I watched the first half
Right.
in Cheshire. So no Johnson first of all for
Yeah.
Bristol. Flyers were 1 for 11 from 3 point range in the first quarter. They had 4 turnovers as well. It's only the third time this season. They had 9 at the end of the quarter. It's only the third time this season they've had single figures at the end of the first quarter, but the second time this week.
Okay.
Surrey led 9-25 early in the second quarter, and I'll be honest, that was kind of the point where I started to zone out on that game.
Yeah.
Even though I did have it on in Cheshire, it was still 41-55 going into the fourth quarter. But then McCormack with 3 threes and triples as well from Lewis, and Walsh had it down to 60-61 with 3:26 to
Yeah,
go.
they
And
made some shots. Obviously, Surrey played the night before, um, as well. And I watched what you saw Bristol kind of getting hot eventually, thinking how
mm,
come they only scored 50 points in 35 minutes when they're dropping threes all over the place.
mm.
Again, I'm not quite sure, not quite sure how much each coach was. I'm not certainly not sure how much Surrey were that fussed about this game. They played, um,
Well, the reality is Surrey have beaten London 4 times this season,
yeah.
and they knocked Leicester out over 2 legs in the semi-finals.
On
So
both
they'll
Saturday and
fancy
Sunday night,
themselves.
they played the young boy whose name I forget, the 18-year-old boy who
Wankwo.
in the Wankwo, and also I think Parkinson was in the game, and
Yeah,
towards the end as well. So you can't really draw too much from it other than the fact that when it gets the last 2 minutes, obviously everybody wants to win,
yeah, yeah.
and back
Let's
and
go
forward.
through the last 2 minutes. Robinson 2 free throws, 62-63. Ray with a mid-range jumper with 135 to go, 62-65. Walsh to the rim cuts it back to 1.
Mm.
Adelican with the miss, and then with 42 and a half seconds to go, Robinson 3 at the top of the key, the first lead since the first quarter, 67-65.
Yeah, we've
But
seen that shot from Robinson, haven't we? He
yeah.
really become a weapon as the season goes on.
Gooden missed a 3, but then Flyers ran the clock down a little too far. McCormack hit a 3 just after the buzzer with
Right.
6.6 seconds to go. Good call by the referee, got that absolutely spot on, but replay replay people would have shown us that there should have been 7.3 seconds
Yeah,
left on the clock rather than 6.6.
that's another thing I didn't mention in my rant before about stuff, is it?
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know, the
yeah,
replay we've
yeah.
talked about.
It was quite easy. Even I was even doing it on Bum
Yeah,
Bum with the space bar, and I could get the pick up the when the lights came on the zeros, and I could see it's 7.3. 1.8 seconds to go. Samuels uses the foul to give timeout. And then zero point 0.1 seconds to go. Ray heaving a bit of a prayer. Lewis maybe with the belly out. Not a lot in it, but maybe just a little belly forward into
I'm
it.
not. I'm not angry about that call. I think if I think on balance, I think it's a good call. What happened was that obviously Andreas is worried about Jalen Ray's ability to kind of pull up, so he's putting as much length, his longest, most athletic defender on him. But what Surrey doing to respond to that is they move Ray backwards, so he catches the ball on the move.
Mm,
So while Lewis is going to be great if he stood in front of Ray when he's shooting it, Lewis then has to move, and Lewis is 6'6" and Ray is 6 foot. And I thought Ray got to the spot, and I didn't think Lewis got to the spot, and
mm,
I thought there was enough.
mm.
I watched it a couple of times, but I thought there
Yeah,
was enough. Um, I think it would have been called at any other time in the game.
yeah.
That's what I would say. So I've got
I think it's one of them where if you played it to me and said, oh, without any commentary or noise or anything, said that's foul, I go, okay. And if you played it to me and said it's not a foul, I go, okay.
yeah,
I
no,
think it's one of them.
yeah.
I haven't got a,
He wasn't
as you
in.
say, his
One thing he
belly
wasn't
sort of,
in. Well, he wasn't in legal guarding
yeah,
position,
yeah,
and there
yeah,
was some contact. I
yeah,
think.
yeah,
Those two things, for me, I'm okay with it.
yeah,
I'm probably a little bit more critical if you don't call it in those situations.
yeah, yeah.
So Tahir got a bit
It's
of
tough
stick
to
last
call
week.
right in front of the bench as
It
well.
is, yeah, in
Yeah,
Bristol, it is. But
yeah,
Tahir got a
but
bit of stick off me
yeah,
last week. So, but
yeah,
I'll give him his props on this one.
yeah, yeah. So then the best free throw shooter in the line in the league goes to the line with zero point 0.1 seconds. Just needs 3 free throws to win the game,
Well, he
and he
needed either three
misses
free
one.
throws to win the game or one free throw to lose the game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He got two,
And he
which
got
gave
to
another 5 minutes of
yeah.
basketball, which is I'm sure what he really wanted.
It was his 12th free throw miss of the season. He is 135 of 147. Mm. So we go into overtime. Let's get to the end of overtime number one, which sort of gives it away. Walsh with 2 free throws, 72-71. James, a couple of free throws, 72-73. A minute to go. Walsh to the rim puts Bristol back up by one. Then Ray misses. Robinson misses an alley-oop dunk, but the rebound bounces all the way out to Walsh with
Yes,
21 seconds left, and now they have a new 14. By the way, that rebound gave Walsh a triple-double.
rebounding and
Um,
is sharp. Yeah.
he then drives, but kicks it out to James, who runs it all the way back
Yeah,
for a layup to put them ahead at 74-75 with 7.3 seconds to go.
yeah. Just so you know, this show's been going on so long. I'm now beginning to tuck into my bunny.
There you go for it.
I will do. Thank you.
You're the one who had a massive run. When I do the thing
Yeah,
on YouTube, the line for that one game is going to be massive, and then some of
yeah.
the other
No,
games are going to be tiny.
yeah. Well, think so
So
more. It probably fits with the level of internet interest. I think.
yeah. Well, to be fair, it covered more than just that game, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
It'll shorten the line on the Cheshire game in a
It
minute,
will do.
maybe.
Yeah.
So then 2.5 seconds to go, Walsh to the rim, but he only makes one free throw, so it's 75-75.
Again,
Uh,
two to win or none to lose.
yeah.
Great one.
And then Ray had a bit of a heave, but it was way off. So we go
Yeah.
to double overtime. Let's get to the end of that as well.
Yeah.
155 to go. Robinson with the offensive rebound and putback makes it 81-77. Adelican then misses a foul line jump shot, pretty open as well. One he
Yeah.
normally sort of knocks
Not a
down.
great foul line jump shot, though. It's not really his shot. Picked a few of
Well,
them, but not,
yeah,
he's looking to get a dribble and get a shoulder in the
yeah,
league.
yeah, true. Lewis is then fouled by Gooden. He goes 1 for 2, 82-77. And then 104 to go. A ridiculous step back three to make it 82-80 from
Oh,
Ray.
by Ray.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was just nuts, isn't it?
yeah,
You got to be guarding him anywhere in his own half. In
yeah.
your half, you got to guard him.
44 seconds to go. Walsh misses, fouls the Delican on the rebound. That was his fifth foul as well. And various other players had already fouled. Louis had long
Yeah.
since gone, and I think Thomas Edwards had fouled out at that
You're
point
a
as
player
well.
and you got to play off next week and you're in double overtime. Get
Mm,
your fouls in.
yeah, yeah. 82-81, 1 for 2 from the free throw line. 21 seconds to go. Robinson backs down, kicks it out to McCormack for three. 85 81.
It was a nice pass up.
It
Really was
was.
a good pass. He really,
Yeah, yeah.
McCormack relocated, but Robinson, Robinson's showing a good all-round game. He really
Mm,
is.
mm.
A little bit undersized, but really everything else about him, he's kind of grown into the season.
McCormack fouls good and he makes 2 free throws with 13 seconds to go. It's 85-83. McCormack is then fouled by Gooden. That's his fifth foul. He makes them both. It's 87-83. And then you think it's over. And with 2 seconds to go, Ray hits a
It's another
three.
one, yes.
87-86. But
That's right.
there may or may not have been a foul before the clock reached zeros, but it wasn't called. And I don't think it would have made
No.
any difference anyway. So that was the ball game. And with that, Bristol win the head-to-head and therefore finish seventh.
Hmm.
The irony being, if it had been 1
That's
point the other way, it would have
yeah.
tied the head to head and it would have been decided on overall points difference, which would have only been 2 points apart. It was that close.
Still kind of two bald men fighting over a comb, though, isn't it?
It is ball
Really,
man fighting over a comb.
you know.
So Robinson 21 points and 13 rebounds, Lewis 21 points and 9 rebounds, and Evan Walsh in the what was it, penultimate? No, it's
Yeah, something like that.
still
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
loads of games to go still. Um, with the first triple double of the season, and it would have been the first league season since 2015 without
Without a triple double.
a triple double if he hadn't
That's an
pulled that out.
accomplishment. I mean, I was surprised he got that many assists because you don't see that in Evans' game very often. But at the end of the day, it's a British player.
Mm.
Stepping up. He's getting a chance because they're playing lots of games and stepping up at the end of the year and making plays. So good for him.
Did I give the numbers? 18 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. Ray, 22 points. James, 21 points and 8 rebounds. And Gooden, 19 points. So Bristol 7th and Surrey 8th. Surrey, by the way, I got asked on Blue Sky today what Surrey's record in recent years was in overtime because the asker of the question.
Well, the record against us in overtime was bloody good.
Yes, it was.
Everybody else was awful, apparently.
It's 3-15.
Hmm.
3-15 since the start of the 13-14 season.
I think they beat us twice. I think 2 of them were against us.
Once.
Only one.
It was one against you, one against Plymouth, and one against Niall. It's on Blue Sky.
That must be the game. I mean, the game I'm remembering must have gone
Bristol. I think it was Bristol.
Maybe we won that game 3 times. It felt like we won that game 3 times and we still lost, which is why I think we played it twice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So let's go to Leicester. Leicester Riders 98, Caledonia Gladiators 78. This is going to be another short line one.
I didn't watch it, sorry.
Okay. Jackson and Fag Benley both out. Leicester scored the first 4 possessions of the game to lead 8-0 inside 2 minutes. Johnny called a timeout. Leicester scored on the next 3 possessions as well. And it was 14-5. It took Caledonia over 4 minutes to get a stop. Whelan had the first 9 points of the game for the Gladiators, and then Wright came in and pushed it to 15 early in the second quarter. And I didn't watch the second half of it, but apparently it got to 9 at the start of the fourth quarter, but that was brief, and then it went straight back out to 15 again.
The only Caledonia player who showed up at the beginning of the game was the guy who used to play for them.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, why would Caledonia?
Yeah.
They played plenty of games as well. They played. The guys who've been there all year must have played 50+ games, and they've lost a lot of games, and that becomes dispiriting. And at that point, Leicester are always going to win that game. They have to win it.
The only other thing I did see, because I did have it going on, but without watching, the only other thing I did see was about 5 minutes ago, Shelton went out of the game with a hand injury. I
Right.
don't know if he slapped the board or something.
Mhm.
It didn't look terrible, but he was obviously getting some sort of treatment. It could easily have just been a cut. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wright, 22 points and 9 rebounds. Johnson, 20 points. Shelton, 15. Whelan, 20. Ali Hodzic, 13. Ramsey, 13 points and 6 assists. And what will probably be the shortest line of them all. Sheffield Sharks, 90. London Lions, 82. Sheffield had a 13-2. I haven't watched any of it.
Neither have I. Sorry,
She-
guys. We
so
really are mailing this in, and we're not embarrassed.
we're maintaining our averages. They had a 13-2 run in the first quarter to lead 29-15, and that seemed to be that.
You just look at the minutes in the game and again.
Yeah,
Bediba played 22 minutes. West played 8 or 9 minutes. Their guys who really aren't playing those level of minutes. Everybody's, coaches are just playing everybody. It's end of season kind of just get these
yeah.
games over
Don't
with
get
and
injured.
don't get injured. Yeah.
The one stat that comes out of it, though, is Sheffield have finished the season either 3-1 or 1-3 in the
I heard you say
head-to-head.
this, yeah.
Everybody that has never happened
Well, yeah, but I mean, to be
before.
fair, we haven't played each other
We haven't
four.
played 4 times loads, but it still never happened. The most it ever happened was 5.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is indicative. It is interesting, that, isn't it? It's kind of demonstrate most of them will be 3-1, obviously.
Yeah.
So it indicates that they have a lot of talent, but they haven't quite been able to put everybody away.
Mm,
Because it means you've dropped a game against the bottom four teams,
mm.
which I don't think Leicester. I don't think Leicester, for instance, they may drop the
I
game.
need to re-look it back up. But when I looked at it a few weeks ago, I think there were only 5 possible sweeps left in the whole league.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
I don't
surprising.
think they've all. One of them was obviously London against Sheffield, and that hasn't happened.
Mm.
So it's less than 5. But I'm going to spend a bit of time looking up because I think there's a lot of good stats in the
Yeah.
sort of closeness of the league.
But there you go. Sounds
Uh, Groves 19, 8 of 10 shooting. Clay 16.7 rebounds. Anderson 12. Delaire 5 of 6 for 16 points. Rye 15 and Holloway 12. And finally, Cheshire.
on your head, by the way.
Yeah,
Those who are following my eating.
yeah.
This is really, the unprofessionalism of this is. I know it's grating, but fuck. Sorry. To use Stutel's word, I know I'm coming at this bunny
Well,
from a holistic perspective.
yeah, yeah. I think, did you just use a word that apparently Andreas used post game?
Did I? I nearly did. I said, yeah, I
I haven't
didn't know
heard it. I
you.
haven't heard it. I just
I
got
haven't.
told
I'll
in
go
my
back.
ears.
Listen now. I mean, absolutely, end of the season. Yeah. Oh, anything goes.
Yeah.
Uh,
So Cheshire Phoenix 99, Newcastle Eagles 89. Cheshire
and
needed
this
to win.
wasn't two bald men fighting over a coat. This was kind of two men with the kind of Bobby
Comb
Chop
overs.
comb overs, fighting over a hair transplant. Shane Warne jobby.
So
Go on.
for those who don't know, because of the head-to-head situation, Cheshire needed to win this game by 12 in order to finish fifth. Anything less than that, Newcastle would finish fifth. Well, it was quite a contest as a result of that. Long was dressed and warmed up, but didn't play. Josh Ward-Hibbert started, but didn't come back in after he subbed out after 2.5 minutes. Alan Ikens limped out as well early in the third quarter.
That
And
wasn't good.
obviously, Ulf is done for the season for Cheshire as well. Cheshire jumped out to a 23-11 lead and spent much of the game in and around the 12 they needed. Newcastle would have a run to get it down to 4. Cheshire would push it back out to double figures. That was kind of the pattern of the game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I kind of look back on it, and I still struggle to kind of figure out how Newcastle didn't lose by more than 12, because every time you looked at the court, they looked to be out on their feet, to be honest. Particularly, I know Okoro was an interesting guy with his gait, the way he moves, but I've seen him a little bit more bouncy up and down than that. And I think Newcastle kind of got away with the zone a bit, which kind of helped
There
them a
was
little
one
bit.
time where he came to inbound a ball in front of me and he walked like the first time I ever ran a half marathon. The
Yes.
next day, that was how I walked. It was like,
Yeah. And
He,
there was
he
just
had that sort of
yeah,
stiffness to him.
and so and, at the end of the day, if you told me that, if you told you that, you were going to get a combined like 63 minutes out of Neighbour and Defoe,
Yeah,
you probably
yeah,
wouldn't have thought that
no,
Newcastle would stay within 10, would you?
no, no.
Um, let's just
First
deal with
time since January 23, Neighbour has
yeah.
played 31 minutes in a game.
Let's deal with a couple of things. Firstly, refs missed a 3 point shot by Candy, which was
Mm.
after the buzzer,
Yeah.
um, in the first half, clearly. Um, and as you say, the game went kind of back and forward. I think Newcastle, what, 16 points out of Will Neighbour? Something like
It's on the other page. Yes, 16
that.
points, 4 assists.
You see, now, I mean, that for me is why Cheshire didn't win
Mm,
by enough, because they have to do a better job of guarding a guy who basically hasn't scored 16 points all season, or
mm.
doesn't appear, it was pretty close not to. Um, And yeah, and then I suppose we just kind of, so yeah, so they went back, as I say, back and forward. Pulliam made some plays for Newcastle. Timberlake made some threes in the zone. Then Cheshire would kind of take not quite as good a three, and they wouldn't get there. And um, it just you're just waiting for the Cheshire run really, because I thought Newcastle were looking pretty tired. And as I say, when you're running Defoe on the wing of a zone, it's a
Yeah,
tough. It's
yeah,
tough.
yeah.
It's tough. And Cheshire attacked the zone, just basically going straight at Neighbour's body, and most of the time they were successful with that.
So Neighbour, by the way, I've just looked it up, has 38 points this season. So therefore he had
22
22
before I.
before that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't look like it adds up to 30. There's a lot of zeros in there, so I'm just
Yeah.
wondering how that adds up to 32.
38.
38. Oh, there's a 9. He had a 9 against Leicester in January.
Yeah, he made a few threes in that game. I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, brought him at the end of the first quarter.
Back to this, sorry. So back and up close to it, but not quite away, and back
Yeah,
down, but not quite in front, sort of
yeah.
thing. And then 86-82 with less than 2 minutes to go, Newcastle with a defensive rebound. I could not quite get the words out to say that may be all over before Holden had knocked the ball loose
Yeah,
and
but
run back
just
and
on that
scored.
play, you showed they showed about three replays of that play, and Holden got a clean steal with his right hand, but Holden fouled Pulliam with his left hand first. You actually watch it back because they showed replays in the full where it came from the baseline camera. And Holden has a swing with his left hand as Pulliam goes past him, hits him in the chest. Pulliam shouldn't turn the ball over in that situation, and then reaches around behind him with his right hand. And the reason I raise that is because when we get to ultimately, calls which impact games, there are many of them,
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? There are many of
yeah,
them,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
not just one or two. There's a call where, Okoro gets called for a backcourt violation, which on no basis was a backcourt violation a bit earlier on. Um,
I thought it was in real time. I'll be fair to you.
yeah,
I thought he touched it last before it went into the backcourt.
I didn't.
From where I was sat.
I
Again,
thought,
we all
I
look
thought
at
it
it
was a
from
foul.
different
Well,
angles.
I
You're
saw.
looking at it from the opposite
Although,
side.
yeah, well, exactly. But they're 50-50 calls.
Mm,
These things happen.
mm.
Point I'm making.
88-82 with 155 to go. Timeout. Okoro then Austin forces Okoro to fall into the backcourt for a backcourt violation. 142 to go. White with the three, 138 to go. 91-82, and it's game on
That was a
again.
nice play by Cheshire. They attacked Holden. Holden attacked. They threw it to the corner, and they immediately reversed it to White. It was kind of a setup attack. Threw it
Mm.
to the strong side corner. I like that.
Ball was then deflected out of bounds by Cheshire, and Defoe was stuck out basically on the halfway line as the shot clock expired with 112 to
Yeah, I mean,
go.
I wasn't impressed. I mean, I thought Pulliam had to do a better. Pulliam had a really good game, but I thought he had to do a better job in the last 2 minutes. There's 4 seconds on the shot clock. He can't be running something for Darius to pop out and get the ball and hand it off.
Mm,
Your guard has to go get the ball and make a play.
mm,
And after Pulliam turned that ball over, and the one that I was talking about and you were talking about,
mm,
next play was a Okoro with the ball. Next play it was somebody else, and then it was they're throwing into Defoe. You've
mm,
got to take control in that situation. That's
mm.
what's important.
Because actually the pass that was deflected out of bounds was going to Pulliam rather than
Yeah,
from Pulliam.
that's right. Yeah.
So timeout. Timberlake shot rims out, but Austin on the offensive glass is fouled with 102 to go. uh, uh, goes one of two from the free throw line. When you were talking about we all cheer for Laundry earlier, I
Yeah.
immediately thought of the Newcastle fans at this very moment in time.
Yeah, well, the little team down, blah
Yeah,
blah. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, um, they then run the clock, but then Pulliam misses. Austin runs it back, and 33.9 seconds to go. It's 94-82, and they just need one stop. One stop.
they do. That's just as I say. I mean, the difference between, as I say, playing Manchester or Sheffield is pretty inconsequential,
Mm,
anyways. But there's an enormous amount of drama in this. Whatever anybody might think, it's
mm,
all, as I say, it's all fairly inconsequential. Austin, great play. Again, that's what you get of Austin. He attacked neighbour into his stomach, made the shot. 2 point game. 12 point game.
mm. And then Okoro misses. Defoe gets the rebound. Austin coming from the weak side, call for
Did the Cora not pass it? I thought the Cora passed it to Defoe. I might be wrong.
I thought he missed it, but
Anyway, whatever.
either way, it ends up in Defoe's hands.
He
And
did pass
then
it because it wasn't another 14 seconds on the shot clock.
I'd have to go back and watch
Yeah,
it
okay, fine, yeah.
again. So uh, that bit is the least important bit of
Yeah,
this
it is
play,
true.
to be fair.
Yeah.
Whether it's a rebound or a pass, does he get an assist for it? Austin coming from the weak side, call for an unsportsmanlike foul. In real time, I couldn't see anything, to be honest with you. I had one little look at it back. Maybe he's been called for being
It's
too
excessive.
aggressive.
Being called for excessive force. I mean, my initial thought was that, well, first, the initial thought was it was a bad play
Mm,
because White had Defoe where he wanted him, White had a hand on the shot. It was the Larry Austin experience all over again. Great
mm,
play at one end, always trying to make plays, always trying to make stuff on the ball. But, he didn't need to do it. That
mm,
was the first thing, but that's what we've talked about it before. He's always looking to make something happen. Um, and my initial thought was on the camera angle, oh, he must have hit him in the head,
mm,
and it was kind of excessive because he hit him in the head. Watching it back, he didn't hit him in the head. I think it may be that Ian McDonald thought he did, but there was a wind up. What I will say is there was kind of a
mm.
wind up to try and it wasn't kind of a hand on the ball block. It was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, 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 yeah.
that kind of thing. And when that kind of hits somebody's arm, it kind of knocks them down and they fall over. It's I don't I would be upset if it was called against me, but I'd probably be upset if it wasn't called for me.
Mm,
That makes any sense. Probably less upset if it wasn't called for me. I'd be upset if it was called against me. It was a play on the ball. The only issue is how aggressive. How aggressive was it?
yeah.
Excessive. It's nothing to do with legal guarding position or anything like that. He's basically come across. He's tried to block a shot. He hasn't tried. He hasn't hit him in the head. He hasn't tried to hurt him. But it's just as I say, what level of force is excessive, and you may as well say, what length is that piece of string, mightn't you?
Mm, yeah, yeah.
And
Uh,
remembering, of course, you know, and I'm going to say this now. It's all right to have a pop at the ref now,
mm,
okay, after the game, but that was the same ref who called an unsportsmanlike foul on Seneca Knight with 2 minutes to go in the Newcastle Cheshire game, which I was commentating on, if you remember, under the basket, when we didn't think there was anything there in relation to an unsportsmanlike foul.
I have
So
a vague recollection of it. I can't picture the play in
no,
my head.
he undercut him undercut Austin
Oh,
under the
yeah,
basket,
yeah,
the
yeah,
far end.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
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 and I was like, did he
yeah,
really? Was it really?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
looking at and that's the same referee,
Mm,
it's been a different call because that's what he thought,
mm,
So, it's not because he wants X to play Y or anything like that.
mm,
It's because he thinks, and whether he's right or wrong, he's making the call like Tahira
mm.
Carr did with the 3 point
Yeah,
shot.
yeah,
He's making the call thinking that's the right call. So you
yeah,
don't complain about it now
yeah, yeah.
when you're
So,
getting it 6 weeks ago.
my argument is the same argument as it was last week with the one that was it Scott Grayson was called for. Give them replay.
Yeah, of
Give them
course.
replay, and they'll be able to go have a look and go. Actually,
Take the
I
emotion out of it,
yeah.
and then you live.
Maybe he says, I thought he did. I thought he hit him on the head, and I've looked back, and he doesn't hit him on the head, so therefore it's a regular foul. Or maybe he says, I thought he went with excessive force, and it looks like excessive force, and it is an
and
unsportsmanlike foul.
that's
But at
why we're
least
coming
that
back.
way.
and that's why we're coming back to this holistic stuff because
Yeah, yeah,
that is a big picture thing.
yeah, yeah,
It needs to be
yeah,
pumped together and put together properly.
yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely agree with you. So yeah, it is what it is. And in any event,
My thing was, I didn't having. I only looked at it once when I got home last night. I didn't think it was an unsportsmanlike foul, but it's called. The other thing is Ben then gets technical, and he actually in the interview because, full disclosure, the I couldn't hear the interview
right,
as
okay.
it was being described. So the fact that I then just pick up and start talking about something random was because I didn't hear any of it. I could work out that he was
Yeah, he
not
wasn't very
happy,
happy. Yeah, even he
but
said,
I
yeah, I
didn't hear
deserve
it.
the
But
technical,
I
which is
obviously
fine.
went
Yeah.
home. I went home and listened to what he did say. And the one thing he did say, and that was, I deserved a technical. I actually thought the technical was a little harsh because I thought Jack Hudson had done a pretty good job of turning him around
Yeah, but I mean,
and sending him back to the bench. And I go back to, was it earlier in the season where Chris and Chris Bourne are basically playing defense
yeah,
on
Andreas.
Andreas.
The problem is now once you give Stuart the technical for dropping his
Yeah,
clipboard,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
deal
yeah,
with
yeah,
them. That's it, you know. And if you look in the background, you see Stuart going to the
yeah,
rest.
yeah,
Look
yeah,
at that, you know,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah. And he said, "I just yeah." So yeah, I mean, I think once you have that degree of aggressive reaction, even if you're stopped by somebody, that you're going to get it. And he didn't. But I don't have a problem with him having an aggressive reaction or
No.
being an upset reaction because that's what coaches are meant to do. They're meant to
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
and if they disagree with a call, they're entitled to do that, and the rules are there to
yeah,
penalise them.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, what I just wish is you have an extra 10 minutes before they do interviews.
yeah, 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 yeah. We can't. I'm not filling for 10 minutes, mate.
No, I know you're not. Yeah, no, well, we will be listening. Don't worry. But
The
beyond that, of course, well, beyond that, of course, at the end of the day, Darius makes two foul shots. That's pretty
yeah.
impressive after 32
So
minutes.
yeah. So
And
Okoro makes one first for the technical, and then
yeah,
Darius makes two
so
for the foul.
at that point, even if it's not on the sports night, it's still a 10-point game. So Cheshire are still down by two. So there's no guarantee anybody who would have whether they got to 12 or not.
They're down three because it's a 9 point game.
Yeah, that's because the
Nine
technical.
scoring.
If it hadn't
Oh
been on,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, they wouldn't have got
Yeah,
the technical.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you see what I mean? So it's still a shooting foul, which wasn't a good play by
yeah.
Austin. Yeah.
So 16.3 seconds to go. Neighbour is fouled. He makes both free throws. Obviously, it was an inbound pass. 94 to 87. Timeout. Advance the ball. Timberlake quick to the rim. 13
Really good
point.
this year, Cheshire, at quick hitting plays.
Yeah,
No
they are.
time out. They're really good. They've got a team which is suited to it, to be fair.
Mm,
But they run some really nice stuff to get to the rim quickly.
mm. So 96.87. So back to nine. 5.9 seconds to go. Neighbour is fouled.
Yeah.
He makes them both.
Yeah.
96.89. And then Skylar White hits a three with zero point 0.9 seconds to go to make it a 10-point game. And you think there's absolutely nothing can happen here anyway because there's only zero point 0.9 of a second to go. But Newcastle obviously call a timeout and advance the ball. And Neighbour sort of, I thought he'd done his knee at first. I honestly, from where I was sat, I thought, oh no, his knee's popped there. And he's fallen out of bounds with zero point 0.2 seconds to go.
Yeah, I'm actually more critical about the ref on this one, about Ian on this one, because Ian called a foul on this play.
Did he?
You know,
I didn't.
not called a foul. You see the fist goes up, he calls it, and then he
Okay.
over to Paul Unsworth, and then they change the call. Now, if you do, if they've changed the call, that means you've called something you haven't seen,
Mm,
basically, which you shouldn't be doing. So that was an instinctive call, as opposed to something that he'd seen. But at the end of the day, yeah, but, yeah, Will never fell over, whatever.
mm,
You're going to struggle to score from there. It all struck me at the end, just how trivial, not trivial, but it'll all be forgotten next week.
mm,
And that's what I'm talking about with the whole picture of just saying things. And I'm a bit hypocritical because if I was in the middle of it, I probably wouldn't be. But finding a guiding way of having everybody see things be a little bit bigger than they really are. Whether
mm,
this time next year we'll have forgotten whether Newcastle finished fifth or Cheshire finished fifth
mm,
in the league, just like we'll have forgotten whether Bristol finished seventh or Surrey finished seventh. Or 2 years time. Can you imagine? No one's,
mm.
anybody who doesn't listen to this stuff not going to be
Yeah,
interested.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
you look at the table and you see one above the other with the same record, and you won't know that actually literally 2 points in both of those final games on the final day would have switched those two
But it's,
two games.
it's not something which really amounts to much. Okay, Cheshire say they would have preferred to play Manchester than Sheffield. Yeah, okay, well, just go an extra 2 points against Newcastle at some other point,
Yeah,
Ultimately, you're gonna have to beat everybody to win,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and I just think that, yeah, as I say, I'm a kind of slightly difficult ground because I chased the referee off once.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm out of it, and so I've got the kind of there's a line against me that you can use and say, all right,
mm,
yeah, and you can say this stuff. Um, but we can't. We have to be able to play games, and we have to. There has to be a level of some respect between the participants,
yeah,
players,
yeah, yeah,
coaches,
agreed.
table officials, referees, owners, everything. And if you were doing like a Venn diagram this year, then basically every single one of those groups is pissed off another one of those groups at some
Yeah,
point,
yeah, yeah,
and both, and not just in the heat of battle. Because, tweeting something out on Sunday night at 11 o'clock is not in the heat of battle,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know, or um, and there'll be a lot of stuff that even I and you don't know about.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that just can't continue. That can't continue. And what we need is some proactive solutions. And you can't do them mid-season. I know that.
mm,
But don't come back to me next year.
yeah, yeah,
This is if we haven't got replay, and and refs are still travelling from the middle of Scotland to Cheshire for a game and then back again with a bottle of water. Don't come back to me, for 100 quid or whatever. Don't come back to me and say, "Oh well, this is all awful." Sort
mm,
the problem,
yeah,
figure it out. And that means there needs to be some togetherness and there needs to be some appreciation of everybody else's situation.
yeah, agreed.
That's the way it has to be. Um, so we'll see.
We'll see. But it was a fun game. Well, I would
It was a
say
fun game, yeah.
it
It was
was
a
a
fun
fun
game, yeah.
game,
I
and
mean, I mean that, and that's why I
could
love. I
easily
said
have
that the
not been.
Newcastle Leicester game. I love this sport. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah,
It's also, if you take the, as I say, the rooting for laundry out of it. It's
yeah,
great. It's
yeah.
a
And
game which
and what
fundamentally
you've got
doesn't mean
is
much, and
one of them
yet
that ended up 15 points, and one of them ended up 10 points, and
10
yet they were
points. Yeah,
still great.
yeah, and it's games which fundamentally don't mean much. They're not going to
Yeah.
result in picking up a bit of a pot, you
Mm,
know. But you've got these professionalism of these players who are coming out and giving it their all and putting on a show and putting on entertainment, which is what we need to
mm,
sustain the sport.
yeah.
Yeah,
So Holden 23 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Timberlake 21 points, White 20, 6 of 12 from 3, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Walsh got the first triple double of the season. Larry Austin, maybe if he'd not been disqualified on the.
and
Uh,
you got daft technical as
we
well.
didn't mention, yeah, we didn't mention the fact that the unsportsmanlike he'd already got a technical.
Yeah, it was a daft technical, because
Yeah,
they got a dunk off here.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
He thought he got fouled, but again, that point. So you can look at Larry and say, look, you gave away a point there.
yeah. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists.
But
Uh,
the point is, there are so many calls within the
yeah,
game
yeah, yeah.
that
That's
impact.
always been my thing.
Yeah,
And again, it's that thing of people go, "Oh, but there was a shot in the first quarter that, and it ended up a 3 point game." And you're like, "Yeah, but by the time they get to the last minute of the game,
yeah,
like even the Candy one, it was
yeah, yeah,
blatantly after the buzzer. I said it in real time.
yeah.
And you can say, oh, but those 3 points make the difference between 10 and 13. Well, no, they don't, because the whole last minute and a half would have been played completely different
Differently.
if
Yeah,
Cheshire were up an extra 3 points at that stage. Newcastle would not have run the clock down as they did in whatever play it was near the end to try and take the
yeah,
time off. They would have attacked quicker. The whole
yeah.
game changes based on the score at the time. So.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It is like most sports. It's a game of mistakes and errors, and you do something right and wrong, and who makes the fewest of them at the
And
end
it's
when it
all the better
matters.
for it, huh?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the human corpuscle is flawed.
Yeah.
You know, well, no, a corpuscle is a blood cell, isn't it? I don't know what that means. But you know, it's flawed. We're all flawed.
Yeah.
We all see Stanford. That's got called ref out last week for
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was quite happy to call me out back for it on Friday night
I
when I
bet he
saw him.
was.
You know, but fair enough, we're all flawed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we got to accept that to a certain degree, and subject to basic parameters.
Yeah.
We got to remember that you know we are in it. This sport in
We're
this
all in it together. We all want the
we're all
same
in
thing,
together, and
don't
the
we?
sport in this
Yeah.
country is at this point on shiftier sands than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Let's be blunt, you know, and that requires it's going to require a degree of putting aside differences and individual grudges or
Mm.
hard feelings and stuff, and just figuring out how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Me and you for boss.
I don't know. I don't want any of that rubbish. I'll bang the gavel. You make the decisions.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
bang the gavel.
That's it.
Akara 27, Pulliam
Give me my
20,
jailer. Yeah.
22. Neighbours 16 points and 4 assists in 31 minutes and 44 seconds. So the final table is thus: London Lions, the league champions, 24 and 8. Leicester in second place, 23 and 9. Sheffield third, 22 and 10. Manchester finish fourth. First time in 25 years a team from Manchester has been top four.
Oh, lovely.
And even that was the conference. They were first
Yeah.
overall, but it wasn't really
And they were no
top four.
more. Oh,
Uh, 15 and 17. Newcastle 14 and 18 in sixth. Cheshire had the same record in fifth.
yeah.
Freudian slip there. I just
Don't
gave
go
them
there.
2 more
Yeah, don't go
points.
there.
Cheshire in sixth with a 14 and 18 record as well. Bristol 13 and 19. Surrey 12 and 20. And Caledonia 7 and 25. So, do you want to? We've been going a long time. Do you want to do a quick
No, I
word
don't think
on?
so. I think the reality is, you know, we said it's going to be like 8 losses, didn't we? 8 and 9
Yeah,
losses.
yeah, and it
Talked
was
about that
eight.
pretty
Yeah,
early. That's
yeah,
what it was. It's a good year.
yeah,
Insofar as the games have been fun to watch.
yeah.
Been a better year than last year, I think, because there's been no TV timeouts.
Mm.
And I just think there's a bit more to it. The sport continues to be well supported. You know, we had 3 games in Newcastle in 8 days, and we had 2,000 plus at each game.
Mm.
And we're getting full venues all over the place. I just think the sport has to stop shooting itself in the foot.
Mm.
You know, we've had some really good players here this year. Probably won't see some of them next year. We had
Mm.
some really good players here this year, and you know, we should glory in that.
Mm. Mm.
We really should.
And we got a few more games to go
Yeah.
through. So the playoffs are spread over the weekend. I think there are 3 games on Monday. There's definitely 2 games
Yeah.
on Monday. It's obviously bank holiday. I think the 3 games on Monday are spread out if there are 3.
Well, it's definitely London, Surrey, Manchester, Newcastle on Monday.
Leicester are playing on Monday as well. I
Yeah,
know that
that's
much.
3 of them.
So
Yeah.
there is 3. So we'll
That's
maybe
good because
try
at
and
least it means that the tails are getting a bit of
rest. Yeah,
rest.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll try and do it. I don't know when the last of those 3 games is. I have a feeling like it's 5:30 or something.
Well, Monday night maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll try and do it Monday night, I
Leicester.
guess, next week. Yeah.
You'll be at
No, I
Leicester.
think Leicester is the first one. I'm sure Leicester is
All right, even better. You'll be
1:30 or something. So
cool.
yeah. So on that, we'll wrap it up. Enjoy the playoffs wherever you may be, and or the flight home if you're
Yeah.
Caledonia. And Dave and I will come back again with our playoff level effort. None
Yeah.
of this
Absolutely. Yeah.
mailing it in on the last
Second effort.
weekend
Second effort.
effort that we
Yeah.
have.
That's it.
We've been well rested by just completely skipping games this week, and we're ready to go for the playoffs. We're off for an ice bath, and we'll see you next
Any
week.
more chocolate bunnies? I'm all ears.
Well,
Oh,
this is
cookies.
the thing.
Oh, cookies.
You should have come to, yeah. This is where you needed Cheshire or Leicester really in the playoffs to come up to
Yeah.
Newcastle. So you
Absolutely. I
could
mean, you could imagine they play each other. It'd be a sweet fest.
get. Right. We'll be back next week, people. See you then. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.